Do you like being controlled? I know you don't. I know nobody does, and especially students don't enjoy that. And you can really see that in the traditional school where you're always being told what to do. You dread the hours going by because all the time all you have to do is sit down so still and so bored by what someone else is saying that you just lose track of like any sort of narrative that could have been happening at that lesson. However, there's also a second approach to school that students maybe don't practice as often, which is a more creative approach to it, and letting the students be the ones who think and talk, and the teacher perhaps should be the one that listens. And the movie Dead Poets Society dwells just upon this matter by introducing us two characters and also an interesting narrative that I think is worth watching and analyzing how they clearly show two distinctive parallels in which students have to, at first, at the beginning of the movie, they just have to listen to what the English teacher is telling them about poetry. They have to read a bunch of theory and note down. Meanwhile, there's this character being introduced, Mr. Keating. Well, Mr. Keating clearly does not respect any of the rules and tosses them away just like that, and they're gone. They're gone. Because the first thing he does in his class is rip all the pages out, all the theory out of it, because he considers it to be math. Because if someone is reading the theory, he proceeds to write on the board that this is simply math, and poetry is not math. Poetry is something that comes from the human heart. You cannot learn it by heart. You have to come up with it. You have to be inspired. That is what he wants to teach his students. He wants to teach them to think freely. He doesn't want to just teach them a method or bore them out with pointless theory that nobody understands truthfully, and at the end of the course you just forget all of it and toss it in the trash as well. You want to be creative in life. That's how you survive. That is the message that the movie is trying to convey. And this is shown through Neil, which wants to be an actor, but he never quite got to pursue it because of his father. His father always controlled him and really believed in all the traditional aspects of life, and even encouraged his son, actually forced his son, to be a doctor, and always would push him to pursue chemistry to the highest. He would even do summer school. All his life was surrounded by studying, but his heart was not there. His head was also not there, even though he was a straight-A student. So one time he goes behind his father's back. Being inspired by Mr. Keating, he believes that he can finally indulge in his freedom that he gets to learn throughout the courses that they take with Mr. Keating. So he goes behind his back and participates in a play, and he is so proud of that. He is also very happy that he finally got to rip away from the grip of his father. But at the end of the movie, his father approaches him about this in quite a violent way, and Neil does not know what to do anymore because he enjoyed being free so badly that he couldn't live like that anymore. He couldn't live being controlled at this point, and he ends up taking his own life, which I believe is the wrong approach to the situation, because actually there was another way so that everyone was happy, well, at some point. But that involves, firstly, Neil surviving this, because I feel like what happened in his head in that moment is that he did not know how to balance out freedom and discipline, so he ends up taking more of a harsher route in his life by cutting everything away. If he couldn't have this one thing that he really cared about, he would have all of it out, which is not the right way to approach this. And later on, we see how the character of Todd, who is always still, always kept to himself, always really being controlled by others around him and never quite having his own voice, ends up reacting to Neil's death, because that is the one thing, the one time really, not one thing, in which he realizes that he has to speak up, and this is the right moment to do it. He manages to actually balance out the moments of when you need to actually be brave and do what you want, which in this case was to speak up when Mr. Keating was about to get fired since he gets blamed for Neil's death, and when to actually listen, which is the lessons, and to his friends. He is always quite polite about this, and I think that is the right way to be. Well, there isn't really a right way to be, but if there was an example of greatly balancing out your emotions at the end, he is a very good example, because he realizes when he can really use his words and sort of be flexible of when to really use his power and how to express his thoughts correctly in a way that he is understood.